Hello everyone. Today I want to begin with the 16th century priest, poet, and conquistador, Juan de Castellanos. He was one of the many Spaniards who sought a better life in the American hemisphere. In the aftermath of Cortez's conquest, Cortez's crusades, Castellanos sailed around the Caribbean. In 1554, he was ordained a priest. He oversaw the construction of a new cathedral at Tunja. He even acquired enough wealth to own his own land and his very own slaves. Living the 16th century version of the Spanish dream. He is also well known for composing an epic poem, which chronicled the Spanish conquest. It was called the Elegies of the Illustrious Men of the Indies. It was a work which glorified the Spanish invasion and colonization as an epic and heroic feat. That is, a small band of Spartan-esque conquistadors overcoming all odds to spread glorious Western civilization to a brand new world. For this narrative to work, however, Castellanos demonized the indigenous Americans. And we could see this by looking at the frontispiece to his work. We see imagery which symbolizes the Spanish conquest of America. We see the faithful maiden of Spain, Hispania Virgo Fidelis. And according to Castellanos, Hispania was bold, fearless, and courageous, chosen by God precisely for this very moment, this reckoning. Her opponent was none other than the dragon, the beast, the manifestation of darkness and evil itself, Satan. And she holds the Bible, and her crucifix blade drives into the heart of Satan, taking the form this time of a dragon. She is impervious to Satan and his minions, Satan's allies whose armies failed to stop the Spanish. She, Hispania, or Spain, was all that stood between Satan and humanity. Spain was the bulwark of humanity, defending us all from the forces of darkness. A theme we see symbolized by Spain herself standing in the middle of the Atlantic between the old and new worlds. That is preventing a unification of these two realms. In order to understand the full context of identifying the Aztecs with the minions of Satan, we have to go a little bit back in time, back to the Reconquista. Now, before the Spanish reconquest, Muslims, Jews, and Christians coexisted for centuries on the Iberian Peninsula, but it was a relationship of unequals. This relative peace, or armistice, depending on your perspective, came to an end with the Spanish Reconquista. In seeking to consolidate and stabilize their power, the Spanish monarchs of Ferdinand and Isabella made alliances with local rulers and leaders, all while attempting to eliminate the social conflict in Spain at this moment. Spanish rulers pinned the blame of this social unrest on the Jews and Muslims, that is, the non-Christians. Therefore, they pursued a policy in which they regarded, from their perspective, to be a peacekeeping effort. And how exactly did they intend to keep the peace? By suppressing the non-Christians, Spanish authorities believed they could achieve peace and stability in their nation. Conveniently, they could also pin all the problems on the Jews and the Muslims and scapegoat these non-Christians as well. To accomplish these goals, the Spanish monarchy received official permission from Rome to establish a holy office. This became known as the Spanish Inquisition. The Inquisition was an attempt to bring order to Spain. And the Spanish Inquisition was not the first Inquisition in the Catholic West. 200 years before the founding of the Spanish Inquisition, the Catholic Church was engaged in attempting to eliminate heresy in territories under its dominion. And the Catholic Church understood heresy as a type of intellectual error. Now, the Catholic Church had its own definitions of what heresy was, but in a nutshell, heresy can be understood as any type of thinking which fell out of step with what the rulers wanted you to think. Yet we should not so easily dismiss the Inquisition as basically a power play. Many of the people involved were most likely religious and most likely believed many of the goals they attempted to achieve. Take, for example, the Catalan Inquisitor Nicolau Eymeric, perhaps one of the most well-known and infamous inquisitors. Eymeric was born in 1320 in the Catalan city of Girona. Eymeric was a Roman Catholic theologian, and he was eventually appointed to be the Inquisitor General for the Crown of Aragon. And he devoted himself to many different types of threats to the Holy Order, including sorcery, necromancy, errors against the faith, blasphemy, crypto-Judaism, and demonology. His book, Directorium Inquisitorium, would be the definitive book, the handbook, the manual that all future inquisitors would read as part of their training. In his struggle against sorcerers, necromancers, and the evokers of demons, Eymeric drew from his own personal experience of what to look out for. After all, Eymeric himself tried several men for these various offenses. He tried a silversmith from Girona for supposedly attempting to sacrifice to a demon. He accused a Jewish person of possessing suspicious books that were supposedly used for evoking demons, bringing them from some immaterial realm into our material reality. The possession of banned books, books for necromancy, books for demons, was a major feature item in Eymeric's personal registries. For example, 2 knights, a physician, a friar, and a monk, amongst other men, were tried for being necromancers, for supposedly using the art of necromancy or possessing necromantic books. On many occasions, he seized these books and burned them publicly. Most of these cases involved the Inquisitor torturing his helpless victims and most likely exiling them from their communities. Now, we as historians don't really know the details of these demonic or necromantic rituals. However, there are several passages in which we get a brief snapshot of what may have occurred. A constable working under a bishop of Girona was seen supposedly making a circle, invoking the devil and reading a book. In another instance, the son of an abbot is accused of trying to force a demon into some sort of magic ring. Now, we know from late medieval culture that one of the more popular and well-known types of experiments was drawing a circle for divinatory purposes. Divinatory meaning divination. Divination being the practice of seeking some type of supernatural knowledge, such as knowledge about future events. However, we do have one descriptive account from 1358. It was an account of a necromantic ritual carried out by a priest. And according to Eymeric, the accusation went as follows. A priest exhumed 2 heads of dead people and anointed them with saffron. He then lit candles and read a book in front of them. And he interrogated those heads and got from them responses about the manner of obtaining women and other lesser important things. This priest, according to Eymeric, baptized a mirror and read those words that are read when a child is baptized, and the words that good Catholics usually reserve for the denunciation of Satan. The priest had said them in Satan's honor. But it was not just the rituals. Sometimes blasphemy was an act that could evoke the devil itself, it was believed. In one case, we see a folk healer who specialized in healing the broken bones of children. He was investigating for evoking demons. Another blasphemizer was condemned for saying that the Virgin Mary was no virgin. This man was also later accused for attempting to persuade women to meet him outside the city and apparently give their lives to the devil. But in this time period, whoever thought of denouncing God was just as guilty as someone who actually spoke out and denounced God. If you imagined flying witches in your head, you were just as heretical as a legit flying witch yourself. Now, these medieval models, these medieval ways of thinking carried forth through the ages. These perspectives of demons, demonology, necromancy, heresy would form the cultural background of the Spanish conquistadors and colonizers who traveled to the American hemisphere. This heavily religious background influenced how these Spaniards would interpret Aztec culture and how they would respond to Aztec culture, leading, of course, to the demonization of the Mexica people. That is their dehumanization that we saw in the very beginning in the frontispiece. With this sort of mentality, the Spanish conquest of America was the culmination, the zenith, the apex of a centuries-long struggle against the forces of darkness. And we could see all this worldview in the imagery used in Castellanos' frontispiece.